All right, we're back for episode 2. I'm trying a couple of new things. One, I've clipped a microphone onto my shirt. A friend told me my microphone situation was unacceptable. Um, Two, I have tried to prepare things a little more. I made myself a little mise en place, if you will. I will. Um, got everything cut up and prepped beforehand, so I'm not trying to cut up things on camera, which is a disastrous idea. Fingers crossed, I'll be cooking without a baby today. I hear currently no crying. We're down for a good midday nap. So everything looking good. On to the show. Today we're making ramen. This is one of my favorite things to make. It's one of the things my kids request frequently and eat multiple servings of. But anyway, right to it, ramen. Ramen's pretty easy, even though what you end up with is a really fancy looking meal. It's ridiculously easy to make and pretty easy to make ahead of time. The main thing you need to make good ramen is broth. I make a fairly simple miso broth for ramen, and then I've found a way over the years to zhuzh it up a little bit to make it taste good. But you start with what is called a kombu dashi. Kombu, seaweed. It's a particular type of seaweed. And you want to throw that in some water and let it not even simmer, just, turn your water on, but don't get it too hot, and just let it steep for a good while, and you get the delicious seaweedy flavor into your water. You start with your kombu dashi. I like to add, for additional flavor, ginger. I just slice it up. I don't do anything fancy with it. I used to cook it some, either, mortar and pestle it up and fry it in a pan. But if we're trying to not take up too much time, then you just want to whack it in. Garlic, I like garlic in everything. Once the garlic and ginger have soaked for a while, you can strain that broth off and you'll have a really delicious smelling and tasting kombu dashi with some ginger and garlic hints in it. You want to add to that some miso. If you do have celiac disease or something similar, check the ingredients. Miso is almost always made with just soybeans and rice, or just soybeans or just rice, but I know there are types out there that have other things in them. I'm not a miso expert, but just check the ingredients of your miso. I like to put in a couple of heaping spoonfuls, probably the equivalent of 4 or 5 tablespoons, but I just scoop it right out and whack it in. Miso into your broth. I like to add nutritional yeast. It's nowhere near traditional, but it does have a lot of flavor. It's got some good nutrients, obviously, and it brings your miso broth closer to what you might see as a white ramen in a restaurant or similar. I also like to add squirt of soy sauce. Again, because we're cooking everything gluten-free, I'm using a tamari, but you can use whatever soy sauce you have. Usually a pinch or two of salt to get it there, and bam, MSG. The sticker company, the stickers that came with these jars can't even get behind MSG, but it's MSG. It'll bring out the flavor and stuff. If you watched the last episode, you saw my shirt about MSG. If you are worried about MSG, don't be. MSG is just it's essentially a salt. It's in almost any snack food you've ever eaten. If you think you have an allergy to MSG, you don't. There is no such thing. There are a bunch of double-blind studies on this. They don't exist. So don't worry about that. If you need to get it all mixed in, you can whisk it all together. You can, are we hot here? There we go. You can whisk it all together. The real action in the ramen is toppings, so I'm going to start talking about toppings. So I've got here tofu. Trick of tofu, this is for almost any application of tofu. There's a couple of things you should do. One, freeze your tofu. This I learned from my aunt, Kim, who made me a dish one night where the tofu had this incredibly chewy texture and I couldn't work out why. And she freezed her tofu, and then when you thaw it out, the texture of it has changed slightly. It's a little chewier, it's a little more substantial. Even when you cook it, it has a sort of a springiness to it that I really like. It keeps beautifully in the freezer anyway. The one thing that it doesn't work super well for is silken tofu, which you can freeze and use, but will also have just a little more chewiness to it than silken tofu would otherwise. It can be delightful if you're going for that, but if you want that pure sort of silken tofu texture, don't do that. But for otherwise, keep your tofu in the freezer. when you're planning on using it later that day or the next day, you know, you can pull it out, let it thaw out, and then press it to dry it out. Who's calling me? Oh, it's the plumber. Well, I'm gonna have to take this. If you press your tofu, you get a bunch of water out of it, and then either when you go back and season it, it's going to absorb more of the seasoning, or it just won't have as much water in it, so it'll be a little, again, a little chewier, a little nicer. I like that. I've also got, at my wife's request, sweet potato. This is a Japanese sweet potato that I cooked in the Instant Pot. Can't talk about it enough. About 10 minutes in the Instant Pot for a whole sweet potato. I did 3 sweet potatoes in there. The other 2 are going to be lunch snacks. But, you know, cook them in the Instant Pot, just steam them with the steamer tray, slice it up, and then once I'm done cooking the tofu, I'm going to saute this sweet potato on both sides. I've got shiitake mushrooms that, like I said, I went to the trouble of slicing these up beforehand. Shiitake mushrooms. The trick for cooking mushrooms is dry pan mushrooms. This one I got from Mark Bittman from the New York Times. He's written about cooking for the New York Times for years and years. He's got a great cookbook called How to Cook Everything Vegetarian. It's a follow-on from his How to Cook Everything cookbook, which includes cooking a bunch of meat. Don't do it. Slice mushrooms, put them in a hot pan with maybe just a bit of oil on the bottom, throw a little salt over, cover them. Keep them there 8 to 10 minutes with the cover on. Most of the water in the mushrooms cooks out. So when you take the lid off, you'll see there's a lot of water in there with them. With the lid off, cook them a little more, just stir once or twice for another 8 or 10 minutes. They shrink down, the water cooks off, they absorb the salt, gets into the water, the mushrooms soak it back up, and they end up these chewy, delicious, browned morsels of goodness. You can do that to almost anything. Shiitake mushrooms, obviously classic for ramen, but you can do that with cremini mushrooms. You can do, if you get a portobello and slice it, you can do the same thing with the big slices of portobello. Almost any mushroom will benefit from the dry pan mushroom technique. And then I love bok choy. Depending on the size of your bok choy, you can slice it in half. I'm using baby bok choy. A whole bok choy I think is going to be too big. But quarter your bok choy if you got, you know, medium-sized baby bok choys. Same pan as I'm doing the tofu, the sweet potato, and the mushrooms. Once I've done all those, I'm going to throw probably a little bit of sesame oil on the bottom. I'll throw these bok choys in. I might do a squirt of water on there just to get some steam moving through them, and just periodically stir them. A cast iron pan on medium heat. They'll start to steam themselves in the pan, and just turn them over a couple of times. Don't overcook them. Mushy bok choy is no one's cup of tea, but just get them starting to soften up. The leaves obviously will wilt pretty quickly and cook, but you want this part down here to get soft enough to sort of be able to bite through without a crunch. Not bad though. And then noodles. I just drilled. Pretend you didn't see that. Oh, sorry, one other thing. I'm mad for this, just egg. Obviously I don't eat eggs. This is fantastic if you're baking. You can use it as a one-for-one for eggs in, you know, cookies and things like that that call for egg without much concern. It also makes killer scramble. Once I'm done cooking everything else in that hot pan, you pour a thin layer of this, maybe with a bit of sesame oil again for the flavor, a thin layer of this, and just leave it there. Don't stir it, nothing. Just let it sit in that cast iron pan in a really thin, I mean barely covering. And then once it's cooked, especially if you've got a nice seasoned cast iron, get a flat spatula and roll it up. Roll it up out of the pan. And again, fingers crossed, we'll see if we can get some videos of all this stuff going. But roll it on up. And then once you've rolled it up, slice it into little strips. You'll have some pan-fried tofu, pan-fried sweet potato, the dry pan mushrooms, some cooked bok choy, sliced up omelette, so to speak, as toppings, and then noodles. You can do almost all of this ahead of time, which is great. For the noodles, I am mad for these Lotus Food rice noodles. They come in a few different types. I have one left of their, I believe it's their Jade Pearl rice noodles, and the rest of their millet and brown rice noodles. They're all gluten-free. They cook up pretty easily in just a couple of minutes. You can cook them in a separate pan and then have them set to the side. So when it's time to put ramen together, you go, scoop of noodles, scoop of broth over that, and then toppings. Or if you're feeling kind of lazy and you just want to get stuff on the table, you can throw those rice cakes directly in the miso broth. Stir them, let them sit for about 2 minutes, stir them with a fork, just start to tease them apart with a fork. They separate. Serve it pretty quickly, because if you leave them in there, they do absorb too much water and end up mushy. But if you just, you're about to serve, that's an easy way of doing things. That's it. Once you got that on the table, you're good to go. So while we're waiting for things to cook, I had a couple of things on my mind. One, right before I did this video, I painted my nails. I have 3 kids now, 2 of whom are at nail painting age. And in an effort to show them that anyone can paint their nails, I have, for a long time, painted my nails when they paint theirs, just so there's never any risk of them saying something idiotic like, only girls can paint their nails. But I painted my nails today because I've been thinking recently about how hard it is to be different. This thought was inspired by a couple of things. One, my kids are contrarians. I think they get that from me. They're also just kids, kids are naturally contrarian. But mine, I don't want to say especially so, but I guess I see some of myself in them, and also I'm trying hard to counter-program them against a lot of the messaging that people get in society, which is this push to conform. So when my oldest started school, she came home from school after the first week. We were riding home on the bicycle, and she told me she'd learnt the Pledge of Allegiance at school. And I talked to her about it and asked her what she thought of it and so on, and she asked me about it. And I told her that I didn't know the words to it because I didn't grow up saying it. And I told her that she didn't have to say it if she didn't want to, which is true. And she decided she didn't want to say it. And she never has. It's never really been too much of an issue. Our middle kid started school recently, and I preemptively had a conversation with her about the Pledge of Allegiance. And she decided she didn't want to say it either. It ended up being a little bit of a problem. Her teacher kept making her stand up for it, even though she wasn't making her say it. And I had to repeatedly talk to the teacher and then the principal about it to try to get him to stop making her stand up. If you don't know this in the US, if you're not watching here, people say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. It's profoundly odd to me to ask young children to pledge allegiance to a government. I think that's wacky. I think it's wacky that anyone is asked to pledge allegiance to their government. Seems like necessarily it should be the other way around. If there's any Pledge of Allegiance, it should be the teachers standing up in a public school and saying, we, government employees, pledge allegiance to you, the people whom we represent, for whom we work. But that's not the world we live in. We're asking kids to pledge allegiance to the government. I think it's nuts. Anyway, today's Veterans Day. And my kids told me last week that there was going to be this special assembly at school to honour the veterans, and they would be singing the national anthem, which my kids didn't want to do. And they said, we don't want to do it. So I talked to the school about it, and we ended up sort of arranging for them not to do it. Even that was a bit of a hassle. And as I ended up dropping them off a little late, so they'd sort of miss the Veterans Day Assembly today. And as I did, I thought to myself, I bet everyone at school thinks that I've pushed my kids not to do this, because I think I definitely stick out at their school as the wacky parent who wears loud t-shirts, and I ride a bike when almost everyone else drives a Tesla, and things like that. So I sort of wondered as I was walking out, I felt that sort of sense of judgment, I don't know, Foucault's panopticon? I don't know if that's the same. Sort of a similar concept, that the being in the vision of society, and not necessarily, that urge to tailor your behavior because of being seen. And that made me feel, different, which I've always felt kind of different. I was never super popular in school, never felt like I fit in. But for the most part, the way I'm different is all the ways I choose to be different. I'm a straight white guy. I don't have, any limb differences, anything that would require me to use a walking aid or a wheelchair. I don't have any, emotional or mental differences about me that noticeably stand out. I get sidetracked pretty easy because I have ADD. People could guess that, I suppose, but you see me walking down the street, you probably don't think that. So most of the ways I'm different are ways I choose to be different, and I present myself as different. But even so, doing that, you feel seen. You feel, when I go around wearing a shirt like this, I wear a lot of pink just for fun. I definitely feel it. I feel people looking at me, and it feels honestly increasingly uncomfortable. Because that was one thing. Just this morning's interaction making me feel a bit different. And then the other one was I was dropping my kid off, my oldest, at theatre the other day, over the weekend. And I was talking to one of the teachers there about how great theatre is for young kids, because the types of kids who do theatre are... kids who are different are overrepresented in musical theatre. Obviously there's lots of queer kids who are into musical theatre. There's, lots of kids with, I don't know, who just, the nerdy kids who like to sing out loud, kids who can't help but dance, whatever it is. There's all sorts of ways you can be different. And one of the things that's really nice about musical theatre is, even if you're not a fan of musical theatre, I have never been, it's an incredibly accepting place. Obviously, again, for generations, it's been a place where, the queer community has been overrepresented, and it's been generally accepting and so on. But in the theatre things we do, I see how hard they work to make sure that people from all walks of life, backgrounds, socioeconomic status, everything, how accepted they are. There's a number of kids who are at this theatre group who are, either broadly, let's say, queer, genderqueer, or seemingly trans. I'm not asking questions where it's none of my business. You go there and want to do theatre, we talk about theatre when we're there. And it just made me think, my gosh, what a terrifying time to be a teenager, a young person, with no, without even the political autonomy of someone of voting age, little as that is, and to be looking at a change in our society where the kind of person you are is seemingly, according to so much of the population, either the wrong kind of person, or at the very least just not worth caring about. Not worth caring that the social and political changes we're going through might lead to vilification, discrimination, violence against people like this, people like that who are different. Immigrants, obviously. It's terrifying to me what it must be like to be a person who, unlike me, isn't volunteering to be different. I'm sort of like, I'm taking the theme park ride. I'm a tourist. I can change my shirt when I need to, and I don't have to be different. True story. I, on a very mild day, I one time left my kids waiting for me in the car with the dogs, windows rolled down when I was gone for a few minutes. I came back and there were cops there. And I was walking out and I saw cops standing next to my car, and I thought, well, shit, this is going to be interesting. I looked down and I was wearing this shirt. I thought, well, fuck, this isn't going to go well. So I bent down behind a parked car and I turned my shirt inside out. And then I walked over to my car and I talked to the police, and they told me that I was breaking the law by leaving my kids in the car. And then they sent me on my way. And that was it. That was the entire interaction. And I've thought so much since then about how that interaction would have gone if I was not able to just turn my shirt inside out. And anyway, because it is so easy. It is so easy for me to turn my shirt inside out. It is so easy for everyone to not wear confrontational clothes. It's generally pretty easy to sort of, at least on the outside, fit in. And that's why I painted my nails, because both I don't want to fit in, but also because I have this contrarian streak in me that says it's not right that all these people out there who can't change who they are should feel put out, should feel scared, should feel bad for being different, to be scared of the community they live in because they are different from how most people there are. I don't know if it makes a difference, but in an effort to both look a little different, so other people who feel different, look different, whatever it is, see other people who are different and feel good about it. I got my nails painted. And also just to tell people who might judge someone for being different, to tell them that I don't care what they think. And I hope they do feel a little uncomfortable. I don't know if having your nails painted makes someone feel uncomfortable. I think it probably does every now and then. And that's worth it. That's worth it to me. So that's why I painted my nails. I think I'm going to keep doing that. I don't know. My wife said she's probably going to wear black every day for the next 4 years, Johnny Cash style. I think I might wear pink. I think I'm going to wear pink every day. That's going to be my version of the man in black. I'm going to be the man in pink, nail polish. That's what I've got. I've got some more sweet potatoes to cook. I've got the mushrooms to cook. I've got the egg to make. I'll stitch together some videos of those, show you how that works, and put a little video at the end of what ramen looks like when it's on the table. Try to make it look real nice. It does look remarkably fancy. Again, one of my favorite meals to make. Pretty easy to do ahead of time. Go for it. All right, into broth.
Is that enough?
A little bit more.
How about that?
That looks good. Bok choy.
Hey, my turn.
You want to do bok choy?
Yeah, I'm doing bok choy egg. I'm doing the rest of the ingredients. Can you do bok choy actually?
I'll
It's
do
a little
bok
hard
choy.
to grab.
That's all right.
And I'm doing tofu, sweet potato, and egg.
All right, you got that plate? Oh, sorry, Kev. Excuse me, buddy. Is this your bowl or mine?
Whose bowl is this?
I don't know. You tell me.
It's yours.
All right, I'm putting some mushroom on it. You want some mushroom in yours when we do it?
Thanks.
All right. You gonna get fingers?
Yeah.
All right.
How many slices? 2?
2 slices. Right them in there. Nice. Sliced sweet potato.
Sweet potato.
Here, we've got a chopstick. You doing it? Right in the middle. Nice and gentle. Oh, look at that. A little bit of this.
Can I do it?
Oh yeah.
There.
I'd eat that.